human rights. Education shall be directed to the full development of the human personality and to the strengthening of respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. It shall promote understanding, tolerance, and friendship among all nations, racial or religious groups, and shall further the activities of the United Nations for the maintenance of peace. So this is important that this should be part of education everywhere in the world. And unfortunately, this is not a reality either. But I believe that we can find creative ways to provide this kind of education. And especially in many non-governmental organizations, we can share this kind of education, and especially education about the SDGs is one way to raise awareness about the United Nations activities, as mentioned in Article 26 of Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So the United Nations is part of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So if we have this in our thoughts, we can try to help share information about the SDGs. I guess most of you already know about Janice da Silva's new initiative, DEV 17, with the aim to implement the 17 SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. And this is where we all can collaborate. We can do this by having this kind of webinars, for example, and we also have social media where we can share information about this. And part of Earth's Democracy Forum, which I mentioned before, is 3 goals, which I also believe that we can try to collaborate on. And the first goal is to promote the principle of artistic freedom and dedication to truth of the media as prerequisites for good society and governance. So we all can help to promote culture again, as I said, and the freedom of expression, and that everyone has the right to express himself or herself in art, for example. It is not a reality in many countries of the world, but I think it is very important. The individual's freedom is very important for the sake of peace, I would say. And the second goal is to seek new models of democracy inspired by the arts as an expression of human creativity and freedom of thought. And freedom of thought is also one article in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And I read directly from here. It is Article 18. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom either alone or in community with others and in public or private to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. And I think this human right is challenged in many parts of the world also, especially freedom of religion, which I feel is very important. Yes, so to conclude, I would say that freedom of expression and freedom of thought and the right to education are human rights that are facing a lot of challenges today, but by working together, we can try to help to make the situation for these human rights better. And I believe that people's freedom is essential for the sake of peace. So with these words, I would like to thank you all for this wonderful opportunity. And I hope we can continue to collaborate to implement the 17 SDGs. So thank you all so much.
So that's a good one. I think Blessing is no longer there. That's a good one. Thank you so much, Maria Veneke. That was a good presentation. We greatly appreciate that. We calling on the next person to take off. Hello, Blessing, are you still there? Hello, Blessing. Okay, I think the network is not okay. Can you all hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Madam Patricia, are you ready to take off your to give us what you've got to say about peace and human rights challenges?
Yes, I'm ready.
Good. Let's
May I
start
go
what
ahead?
you've got.
Okay.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Joseph, for stepping in for Blessing. I appreciate you all. I want to thank Ambassador Janice Da Silva for this wonderful opportunity and all the organizing organizations that have put this celebration together to celebrate the International Day of Peace, which is September 21st, when we'll be celebrating peace all over the world. So I'll be speaking generally on peace and human rights challenges. We've talked severally, Maria and Adeze have spoken about peace. Peace is applicable to every single person, about 8 billion of us in the world. It takes peace for all of us to be able to coexist and naturally and fulfill our aspirations and objectives. Peace is not just an absence of war, but it's also an environment or milieu or condition that enables humanity of every nation, all nations, to seek to fulfill their rights to exist in harmony with respect to the other occupants of the planet. Like I said, we're 8 billion humans. Without peace, there is no way there will be chaos, you know, in the world. So peace is what enables all of us from different nations and backgrounds to be able to coexist easily. Peace has several conditions. It requires tolerance of the other. It requires understanding. It requires fairness. It requires respect and empathy of the other. It also requires respect for the Earth's resources. The 8 billion of us have been put here to live and subsist on the Earth's resources. So when we're talking about fairness and respect, we're also going to be talking about fairness and respect for the Earth's resources. One community should not overuse and utilize the Earth's resources more than the other. So we should all do everything mindful of the other. A great scientist known as Albert Einstein, who discovered the theory of relativity, he said that peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be kept by understanding. Across the centuries, we've fought the First World War, the Second World War, and we nearly came to blows again more recently. And we have come to know that it is not just arms that can keep peace. The thing that can really keep peace is understanding. When people of all nations get together to understand the issues that are common to us, and we agree to respect one another and live with one another in peace, then we are able to live and inhabit the world peacefully. So, and this understanding of the other is very, very important for achievement of peace. Peace and justice with strong institutions are part of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that the United Nations has brought about for us to achieve before 2030. Peace provides an enabling environment for all these SDG goals to be met. Peace is not just an absence of war, as I've said before. We all know that war is a situation where humans are deprived of liberty, deprived of freedom, deprived of the ability to earn a living. With war, there is devastation, there is hunger, there is poverty, there is rape, there is debt, and there is injustice. So these are all the conditions that come about when there is no peace. So you see that peace is a goal that will remain as long as nations with competing interests and power exist. So peace is a goal that humanity has to keep in view for all time. The fact that peace is always assumed to be an absence of war is a misconception, because it's usually nations that fight wars. But there must also be peace among nations. There must be peace within nations. There must be peace within communities, within towns, within villages. There must be peace within social groups. There must be peace within families. And there must be peace within the human person. In Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, he said that peacemakers are blessed. He said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God." When we are peaceful, we are more like God, our creator. The 14th Dalai Lama has also said that world peace begins with inner peace. We are 8 billion human beings on this earth. When each of us can find inner peace within us, then it will be easier for us to be able to extend peace to the other. Since we're talking about inner peace, I'll understate a few challenges to personal peace that each one of us can identify with. At one point or the other, we have subscribed to one of these things. So it's good for us to underline it so that we can see that if we can overcome these challenges to inner peace, then we'll be better placed to understand the challenges that other people are equally going through. And it will increase our understanding of one another and help us get to the point where we are peaceful with one another. So some of the challenges to personal peace include low self-esteem, unforgiveness, unemployment, poverty, divorce, isolation and loneliness, envy and greed, craving for power, intolerance, lack of education, drugs and addictive behavior, social dysfunction, and disrespect for moral laws. There are others, but these are a few. These are some of the things that contend with our inner peace. And what is the link between a lack of inner peace and the disregard for human rights? When there is personal lack of peace, people that do not have inner peace, they seek the company of those who equally do not have inner peace. As it is said that misery seeks company. Social groupings of dissatisfied humans and also those who are in states of dis-ease, they are prone to prey on other humans in blatant disregard for those people's rights. And they will also seek to blame other people for their own lack of peace. And when these people exist, there are despots and malevolent rulers who take advantage of these sentiments to use these groups of dissatisfied people as oppressors who prey upon vulnerable segments of the population. So you see that really there's a there's some synchrony between lack of inner peace and abuse of human rights. So once we identify the link, we will now be more challenged to strive to obtain inner peace so that we can bring the abuse to human rights levels down. So we're now going to talk a little bit more about human rights itself. Human rights are what we describe as moral standards that are understood as the inalienable fundamental human rights of every human person. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was made on December 10, 1948 by the United Nations General Assembly. And its fundamental premise is that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights, and the recognition of this is the foundation of peace, freedom, and justice. What in effect this is saying is that once you realize that every other human person is born free, is born equal to you, and you respect their own dignity and their own rights, then it is easier for there to be peace and justice and freedom for all human beings. The Human Rights Declaration itemized a few of these rights, and some of them are the right to life, liberty and security, the right to a fair trial, the right to being equal before the law, the protection, guarantee of protection of physical integrity, protection against enslavement, torture, and inhuman treatment, the right to free speech and beliefs or opinion, the right to education, and the right to equality and freedom from discrimination. I would add, in addition to some of these things, that the right of the unborn to life is also a right. Although some authorities would say that life does not begin at conception, but I would dare to say that the unborn child also has a right to life. I would also say that most of these rights are guaranteed by governments, but it should also trickle down to the individual, because in each societal collection or gathering, there are people at the head. In the family, the husband is the head. In a nation, the president or head of state is the head. So each leader is enjoined to guarantee the rights of those under his or her charge. So if we have articulated all these human rights, why are we having problems? If the world has articulated the fact that all men are born equal and have rights that go with their humanity, why is there intolerance? Why is there hatred? Why is there racism? Why is there poverty? Why is there terror, oppression? Why is there slavery and injustice? Why are there extrajudiciary killings? Why is there electoral malpractice and other evils? It may be that the Declaration of Human Rights is not being adhered to, and also that the majority of the world populations are ignorant of these rights, and therefore they are unable to insist upon exercising these rights. The United Nations Declaration of Human Rights also advises that beyond proposing the declaration as a standard of achievement, that every individual and organ of society must, by teaching and education, promote respect for and adherence to its tenets, which is what I'll now want to bring us back to what Maria, one of the former speakers who spoke very eloquently about the importance of education, especially primary education. Once people are educated and are educated about their rights, they are in a better position to insist upon their rights. And they are also in a better position to begin to take responsibility for the enforcement of their rights. So education empowers people. Even Adeze also spoke of it, that when you educate a woman, you empower her and give her a voice. So you see that education is important. It is important that we educate people, that they know that these are the rights they are entitled to. And when they insist upon their rights, they will also take the cognizance of the responsibilities that go with these rights. Human rights are the fundamental basis for sustainable development and peace, and they build strong and successful societies. States owe their people justice, equality, and dignity under the rule of law, which is why the law is important, and the law should actually be supreme in any society. In times of peace, states are better able to guarantee their citizens' human rights. As I've said before, in times of war, with the breakdown of law and order, rights are usually suspended. Arbitrary arrests occur, extrajudicial killings and killer gangs operate. And then you find citizens forming vigilante groups to attempt to protect themselves. And they buy arms or defensive weapons, which can quickly be used even when the threat of terror is over. This is the reason why we must guarantee an environment of peace, so that we do not begin to empower states of chaos. So it is therefore obvious that without peace, it is difficult and almost impossible to enforce human rights. Where human rights are recognized, protected, and guaranteed, the society has a greater chance of approaching the ideal of peace. It then becomes a kind of chicken and egg conundrum, that without human rights, there cannot be peace. And without peace, it is almost impossible to observe or guarantee human rights. Therefore, peace and human rights are inseparable, and they are a joint goal to be aspired to. The 17 SDGs are part of the solution to achieving world peace as a means of eradicating world hunger, poverty, making good health, education, clean water available, achieving gender equality, and making affordable energy and economic growth possible are all some goals that, if we achieve, can reduce inequalities that pose a challenge to peace and the dignity of the human person. There are so many things that we have spoken of, but if we can realize that for achieving peace, peace is not just at a national level, but also at a societal level and at a personal level. And if we also understand that without understanding that of the other, that we cannot achieve peace. And if we also understand that if in an environment of peace, human rights are almost guaranteed. If we understand these few things, I think we'll be well on our way to achieving peace and human rights in our society and in the world. Thank you. I want to appreciate the organizers for this opportunity that I've had to put forward my view. And I appreciate all the other speakers, and I look forward to hearing more from the rest of you. Thank you very much, Joseph.
Thank you so much, Madam Patricia. It's really sad to know that our human rights are not respected. And just as you have said, we believe that if we can come together as one and then have peace within ourselves and among ourselves, we can actually achieve this human rights for all. Thank you so much once again, Madam Patricia. Dr. sorry, Dr. Mohammed Kauta, are you on the call, sir?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay,
Good
so we
evening.
would like to hear your view on this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Muhammad Kouta, Goodwill Ambassador. I'm from Egypt. Actually, I'm thanking all of yours for to organize that and give me this good opportunity to celebration together this evening. Actually, I would like to talk about the celebration international peace. It is brief about that topics. To celebrate international peace around the world, we invite all governments of the world, all ethnic groups, minorities, and armies, and war dealers to stop for a moment, to think about the fate of the generations of humanity, and to acknowledge, respect, continuous for diversity in the culture and religions, beliefs of the each individual. And if we have the common goal of the welcoming humanity and promoting peace and goodwill. It is time to end the conflict between all nations and find ways to resolve it. Peace is the message of God's prophets and the messenger. Thank you very much, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mohammed. That was really encouraging. Um, Mr. James Mercy Obatumibi, are you on the call, sir? Hello,
I'm
Mr.
here.
James. Okay, welcome. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We would like to hear your view on the topic. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Blessing. It's a pleasure hearing you. I want to thank you very much, the organizers of this program, especially Ambassador Janice Da Silva and other personalities. I greet you all and protocols daily observed. I want to say this much because speakers have gone in depth into the subject matter, especially Mrs. Patricia. She has said much about it. Without wasting much time, we must understand that there are challenges. There are challenges in these women's rights. There are challenges. Number one is what he has said, that poverty is a most challenge that the less privileged, the vulnerable face when it comes to human rights. Number one, because they have no money to face the challenge when it comes their way. And ones that are blessed with money, they use that against them too. Let me be practical now. If something happens to somebody living or homeless person, number one, you'll be thinking of, how do I go about this matter? Who am I going to report to? Who is going to help me in this situation? Now, if we have to go to court, where am I going to get money? Who is going to stand for me? So, for him or her not to get herself into trouble, he will better keep silent about the issue, because he or she doesn't have money and doesn't know where to go. So poverty and global inequalities, it is number one challenge, I could say, that we face in this human rights. We might be shouting human rights, fine, but it is a primary challenge that people face because we are into it. Every day there are series of cases. Like the one we had today, the case of rape, where a 7-year-old daughter was raped. In that case too, the father, because he has no money, he was saying, no, I don't want, because if I report him, they may still get back to me and come and arrest me. On what? For what? So because he has no money. So poverty is a key to that challenge that some of our people are facing because they don't have the global inequality. We are not the same. There are gaps. Because if you know that the victim of any circumstance, they are well to do, and you know that if you intervene to this matter, it will still get back on you because you don't have money, because you are not equal. Problem comes. Then I would like to talk about discrimination as well. When you get a court or anywhere that a matter has to be set to a case, because you are not either black or white, discrimination comes in because it's not your religion, it's another religion. Problem comes in, so they begin to discriminate because he is a Christian, because he is a Muslim. So that means that person has he doesn't go in such a way. Discrimination is part of the challenges we face in human rights. Then force, like the army, the navy, the whatever, the agencies like that, they want to implement things with force, and it's against the human rights. In such a situation, there's nothing you could do than to submit to them because you don't want to waste your life. If you are there shouting, I know my right, they'll just shoot it, gun you down, and there's nothing you could do. It's part of the challenge you're facing. And if you want to intervene in such a matter or situation, as an act, it's that yes, this thing ought not to be. Before you know it, you might be torn down, and there's nothing you could do. So it's another challenge that, when you face conflict like that with force, or violence came up like that with force, so there's nothing you could do. It's part of the challenges we face. I'll give you another example. If you are riding on your own car, maybe another car just hits you, and you came down from the vehicle to address the issue or to attack the person. In that one, the person came down with a uniform and with gun. I have witnessed it. Instead of that person challenging or talking, it will even be frustrating that, please, it was a mixer. See, it was the one that was 40 or giddy. Because the man is the first man, he knows he can do anything. So it's part of the challenge that people face. So in that aspect, they were not able to talk or voice out. And also the impunity placed on the politicians or government officials. There are a lot of things we have experienced that happened, and because of the impunity, nothing was done. In such a case, what can the vulnerable or less privileged ones do? So there are challenges that when it comes to human rights, you sit down and begin to think, how can we overcome this? If you want to vote as a human rights now, human rights, when it has come to law that impunity for these so personalities and issues came up, there's nothing you could do. So it's part of the challenges. I've just mentioned poverty, of course, now I've mentioned poverty, discrimination, conflict, or violence with the force. We want to talk about weak institutions. There are some people that have reported that to some organizations to address or call themselves human rights. So when they report to them, they look into the matter. If the matter is a serious or challenge, with great challenge, they might not know what to do about it. Because they know that if they press this, they press further on this issue, they may get arrested or the case might turn against them. These things I'm saying is practical, is what we have experienced. If that person knows one or two persons in power, before you know it, they will turn that case against that person that reported. There are a lot of cases we have handled in that way, where somebody went to another man's house to rape the wife when the husband was at home. So they lock the person down to punish the person. So when you get to court of law, the case is changed. They change it to kidnapping, that they kidnapped the man there, not that he went there to rape. So because he knows people in power. So like that, the institution has become weak because stronger institutions has come in to fight for that person. So there are a lot of things to talk about when it comes to challenges that we face in human rights. And what I think my recommendation is what Mrs. Ambassador Maria said. Collaboration, working together, will really help. When your organization is weak, or yourself as a person, you're weak. But when we come together and join forces together, it becomes stronger. When we work as a team, it becomes stronger. So collaboration, working partnership, coming together with one voice will go a long way to help. Like the media now, if anything happens, if it has gone to media and the issue has already spread, there's limitation to how people can just cut down the issue, because they will look into how the issue has been spread and they will want to see how they could come into that situation. So my recommendation is working together in collaboration, partnership, working as a team. It will really help the weak institutions among us. So thank you once again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. James, for that informative session. It's so sad to know that we've faced inequality of all. I think at this point, decision makers need to look into inequality and create ways that they can tackle that when creating policies to executing human rights. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Joseph Akinula, are you on the call, sir? Mr. Joseph, sir?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. We would like you to share your view on peace and human rights. Thank
Okay,
you, sir.
great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this privilege given to me by our most honored ambassador. Thank you so much. Mr. Makela is a foundation, and also I'm a humanitarian and a media consultant. It's a pleasure to be here. For me, the human rights and peace and human rights challenges. Let's take it one after the other. I have a quote here. The right of every man is diminished when the right of one man is strengthened. The right of every man is diminished when the right of one man is strengthened. Why? This quote was from John F. Kennedy. Okay, what is peace? Peace means freedom. It means tranquility and calmness. Peace is where there is no war. That's a state where there is no war. Peace means quietness. When we're talking about peace, I think we're talking about the concept of societal friendship and harmony. When we're talking about peace, we're talking about actions of what? About it. No, where there is peace, when there is peace in the land, it means that there is a stress-free life. There's going to be stress-free activity. So, human rights challenges. Well, challenges, some people want the seat they believe it has come to obstruct. Some to them want the seat challenges, or when they hear the word challenge, they feel okay, this thing has come to stop or to be stopped. Well, I disagree with that. Anytime I hear the word challenge, two things come to my mind: change or change. Change, like they want to use on the dog's neck. Yes, change or change. Yes, change or change. And fine, how do we achieve change with challenge, and how do we achieve change with challenge? When we act accordingly, I mean positively and creatively to challenges that comes our way, then we create a change of it. But when we act negatively and we act with a victim mentality, well, sorry, then change because of that challenge that comes our way. Okay, I think I have about 5 categories of human rights, 5 categories here for human rights, talking about human rights, 5 categories of the challenges people face in different countries. The initial one is political. The first one is a political challenge. The other one is an economical challenge. That's how the political challenge has to do with when they are weak institutions, when they are not good and powerful people who can think, creatively, who can think in line of affecting life, changing life positively. When they are not in power, when they are in power, they can talk. Yes, they produce weak institutions. Yeah. Second category has the economical challenge, the human rights. All the things will bring barrier. Economical challenge, which is when people when they can't lay hands on what they really want to achieve in life, on their goals and their projects, well, they'll just be there. And once it happens, they can't even talk. They can't talk. This conflict is social challenges. Social challenges. The first one is legal challenges. They are trying to inequalities or equalities. So you can identify as well. And the fifth one I have here is the moral challenges, human rights. Yeah, what are the solutions? Or how do we bridge the gap? How do we bridge the gap between peace, having peace in the land, and the challenges human rights people in different countries face as regards their rights as human? Yeah. Under the political, I think I have be a part, you just have to be a part of the system. You are an ambassador from different walks of life. Let's just be a part of the system. We can influence the change we want. We can just do that. We can just be a part of the societal system. We need to have a voice. By sharing and enlightenment, we need to just enlighten others. The belief system we have, the positive, the exposure, everything God, let's just have it and let's pass it around. Let's transform other people around us. Yeah. Lastly, on Lastly, under political is let's become a model for the next. Let's become a model. Because let's create a standard. Yes, when we are privileged to become to get into the political office and start leading, well, can we become a standard? Oh, we won't get there and we compromise and just do some things anyway. And the next one on the economical being on that economical solution, bridging the gap. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, under the economical, that's where agriculture comes in. Solution. Let's use them to bring in gap. Let the government, let there be job creation, let there be skill admission program. Let's empower the youth, let's encourage them. Let's start the age. And by so doing, peace will be the land. The land where there is no peace begins with the land that is suffering. The land that is suffering, that people, the government doesn't care about what's happening to the people. Yes, we can bridge the gap socially. We can use the social media, we can use our social life to change the lives of people around. Then we can do that legally too. Among us or anyone in the legal industry or legal profession can do that. How? You can do that. When you are privileged to be in a place where you can talk, where you can pass something into build into the fine. That's part of it. Well, in conclusion, I want to use this quote to conclude. Nelson Mandela said this. He said, to deny people of human rights is to challenge their very humanity. To deny people of human rights is to challenge their very humanity. Let's look at that. That's what Nelson Mandela, and that's what I have is a right delayed is a right denied by Martin Luther King. A right delayed is a right denied. Let's assume you and I are right and denied. I delayed. Fine, what's up? That means I'm right. There won't be peace in the land. I pray that God will help us and we'll be able to make things straight. In conclusion, I think I have a closing line. In conclusion, there will always be peace in the land when everyone, I mean you and I, around does the right thing. There will always be peace in the land when everyone around does the right thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joseph Akinola. Although your network was a little bit shaky, I think I got something that if we want to make things right, it starts with you and I. We have to do something and we have to do the right thing. Thank you so much once again, Mr. Joseph. Madam Janice da Silva, are you on the call, ma? Oh, Madam Janice da
Thank you.
Silva.
Thank you, Blessing.
Hello.
Thank you, Blessing.
We would like to hear your view on the topic peace and human rights. I understand that you have a whole lot of stuff to say and you have a whole lot of insight to give.
Thank you. Thank you, Blessing. I would like to thank the previous speakers. And you said it all. You said it very well. You know, this topic of human rights is a very challenging topic. It's true. And, you know, when I see a direct link between human rights and peace, well, one cannot exist without the other and vice versa. So it's true that we have this feeling that human rights are violated worldwide, but we have to know that it's true, it's true. We have a long way to, you know, invest on human rights observance, to invest because human rights has to do with the right to development. It has to do with our basic rights. We have around the world that this feeling that more and more human rights are being violated worldwide. I would like, therefore, to to mention some gains that the human rights observance had during this years, this 75 years of the UN. One of it, I think, has to do with the pact of social, economic, and cultural rights. It has to do as well with the different convention and treaties that have to do with the right of women, the right of children, the right of people with living with disabilities, the right of minorities, uh, you know, uh, the right of LGBT as well. So different rights are more and more, there is the chart of the human rights, and more there is the need to specify human rights observances. So I see it as one of the gain of the global international community. Therefore, someone mentioned, I think it was Ambassador James, that the challenge has to do with working together, has to do with working in partnerships. And now I think about the SDG agenda, when the SDG is a very, very, very human rights based agenda. Uh, uh, and, you know, despite all these gains, is to tell you that we should more and more fight for human rights. When I say fight, I mean the negotiation, because, the human rights observance has to do with negotiation, has to do with the capacities the countries, institutions, organizations have to negotiate, uh, to negotiate development, to negotiate, because even though our human rights are non-negotiable once you are born, all your human rights have to be observed, but how to implement human rights policies, they have to be negotiated, because, for example, the right to education, the right to health, the right to food, the right to adequate housing, for example, all these specific human rights, although they are non-negotiable in terms of the one has all these rights, but we should more and more negotiate the priority to implement the human rights. I see human rights, we should more and more turn human rights as public policies within the government, policies. So most of time, these commissions that most of the countries have on human rights, they should be independent. They should be commissions independent. Otherwise, they risk to be, implemented based on, government will. Uh, so that is why we should more and more negotiate. And now I see the role of civil society. What we are doing here, for example, advocating for human rights, linking human rights with peace, is something, it's one of the ways. So I encourage and congratulate all the institutions, NGOs, associations that are working in the observance of the human rights worldwide. Uh, we cannot have peace if we don't have the human rights observed. We cannot have human rights observed if all this the right to development, and this is one of the gains on the human rights, struggle for observance. They specified the right to development. So development is seen as a human rights as well. So I think it's a gain. So we should be, it's not easy to, you know, negotiate when it comes to human rights. Now I see the you know, the rights of inmates. Most of time governments think that once someone is imprisoned, for example, once someone is an inmate, uh, is because he committed crimes, etc., but he's still, you know, a human being. So he has only, you know, posed the human rights to, you know, to the free of movement, but his other human rights must be, you know, observed as well. Uh, Therefore, I think what UNESCO, for example, call the education, human rights education. So we should more and more in schools, since the kindergarten to primary schools, etc. You know, kids, they must be educated on the human rights. They must be educated on the human rights and also on the duties. uh, I think it's very important here. When we talk about human rights, we should talk as well about the duties we have as citizens. Uh, we should think, we seniors, what kind of values we are transmitting to youth, we are transmitting to our kids, what kind of road we are building or not building in order for the kids to have, to really have, you know, not to really understand the importance of their human rights, because in many areas people don't know, they don't even know their human rights, they don't even know that their rights are being violated or not, because they never had, you know. How many of us, we intellectuals, how many of us, we read the Human Rights Declaration? How many of us have read the Human Rights Declaration, for example? So when we go to villages where people have problems to access education, where you have problems of literacy. So is it difficult or easy to talk on human rights? So we should have this culture, what UNESCO calls the culture of human rights education. That is why I say it's a matter of negotiating. And when you negotiate, leaders, when you negotiate, you should negotiate as well budgets to teach the human rights, the education, the culture of human rights and duties as well, the culture of global citizenship, of local citizenship, of one citizenship within your schools, within your association. How many associations that work for human rights, they struggle with budgets, you know, to undertake their campaigns, their awareness campaigns, etc. So all this must be observed when it comes to human rights. There is a long way, it's true, but together, as Ambassador James said, and Maria and Patricia as well, well, all of you, and you, Joseph Akinola, as you said, together we can be stronger, together we can do more for the observance of the human rights. And the little we do in our village, in our community, in our city, has an impact globally. So let's not be discouraged. We should, you know, rely on all these gains. I see the right to development as one of the biggest gains when it comes to human rights observance. I see all these treaties, international treaties that I've mentioned, and there are many more, as, you know, gains on human rights. So it's not easy talking on human rights, but it's to tell you that each country, each leader, each association must, you know, because human rights, it's not for granted. Okay, you know that you have all those human rights, But we know, we intellectuals, we know when our rights are being violated. But most of the time, people at community, at the villages, they still don't know. So we should teach them. We should teach them. Those of you who have your organizations, so separate a budget for awareness campaigns on human rights. And don't be afraid don't be afraid of, okay, if I put my flag on human rights, it's because I am, someone that I see this, for example, with the feminists that work with gender issues. Sometimes they are discriminated. People that work with human rights, most of the time they are discriminated because they are seen as people that, okay, this human rights people, even at the UN, those that work with a high commissioner on human rights, they are called, oh, this human rights people, they just arrive. Oh my God. Yes, but we should stand up for human rights. So this is the global message of the UN. It is true. We should stand up for the human rights. We should teach to those we still don't know their rights. We should separate budgets to make available resources for the human rights work. So thank you very much, Blessing. These are the key messages I wanted to share with you. And we are together. And let's stand up for human rights. Thank you, Blessing.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Janice da Silva. Having spoken a whole lot and brought so much insight. Well, we have to invite the culture of human rights education, and we can't talk about human rights when we don't know our human rights. So first of all, we need to know what our rights are. Now we know what we are fighting for. Thank you so much, Madam Janice da Silva. At this point, thank you so much. At this point, I would like to go through the speakers once again to have your final summary, your last words concerning today's topic. So in no particular order, I will start with Madam Adeze. Madam Adeze, are you on the call,
Blessing, excuse me, Blessing. I think are we sure that we turn the round table of the speakers? Because I invited Lynn. I don't know if Lynn talked already. I don't know if Lynn is on the core.
Ishakutu is there.
Lynn,
she is on the call.
And Dr. Mohammed as well. Did Dr. Mohammed already? Maybe.
Oh, sorry, Madam Lynn.
Yes.
Hello, very good evening, everyone.
Isha, who is here to talk?
Sorry, Madam Lynn, forgive me for, I think I missed that. It must have happened when I went off network.
Okay, very good evening, everyone. I'm really thrilled today, although I'm slated to speak tomorrow, but I've really learned a lot today, and there are a few pointers that really got to me. Basically, the relationship between peace and the achievement of the development goals. It is obvious that without peace, we can't achieve the development goals, and they are so entwined. And then before we can negotiate human rights, we have to first of all put peace in place. So with these few points, I just want to say thank you. I know that I'll be up tomorrow to speak. So I've really had a wonderful time tonight. Thank you to all the organizers. Thank you to all the speakers. I've had really a wonderful time listening to all of you, and I really appreciate your drive, your enthusiasm about human rights. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So my mistake, Blessing. Lynn was to speak tomorrow, but still, Lynn, we love to hear your voice. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you too. Thank you.
Blessing.
Hello, Blessing, are you there? Not there. I think I can be Ishaku. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm fine. How are you?
Good. I'm good. Are you ready to share with us what you have to say as regards peace and human rights challenges?
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Whatever time it is, wherever you are. My name is Billy Shaku, and I bring you greetings from Nigeria. Can you hear me?
We all can hear you clearly.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be here, and I want to thank the organizers of this Zoom conference. You're doing a good work, and I know that your good work shall be rewarded in good time. Thank you again to everyone for joining in. And I know together with one voice, we can change the world for good and make it a better place for the upcoming generation. Concerning the topic, peace and the human rights challenges we're facing, it's a global thing. And I've been on the Zoom meeting from the beginning, actually, and I've heard all the speakers today, and they have actually said so much. So complementarily, I'll just share my story, and my brief talk will be focused on the impact, the negative impact of conflict and violence on human potentials and capital development, human capital development, basically. And that's because of my experience with genocide back in Kaduna and what it did to me personally, which almost thwarted my entire existence and affected me for some time until I was able to create a paradigm shift through study. And this is why, for everyone who has referred to grassroots education as a major solution to human rights violation globally, I think I resonate with that, and I agree with that very, very fundamentally. So I want to say we all know what peace is already, but by extension, I want to say that peace actually is personal before it is general. And that's because people who go out there in the world and create a lot of, for want of words now, create a lot of conflict, create a lot of confusion, people who facilitate war and conflict, either religious war and whatsoever, most of them are looking for just one thing, okay? Most of them are looking for something out there that they cannot find in themselves, and which is peace. And I think Patricia mentioned something like that. So I believe peace is first of all personal before it is general. And I believe peace is actually the end result. And this is very profound. What I'm about to say is very profound, and it's very, very key to global peace. Peace is actually the end product of an individual's sense of purpose, a person's sense of purpose. Peace is the end product of someone knowing his purpose for existence and then having that freedom and the platform to give expression to his innate voice, to his innate abilities. And without that, a man can keep running around in circles for so long. And the truth is this, for us in Africa especially, because I'm a Nigerian, and my experience has shown me that without peace, people can actually not fulfill their destiny. People cannot live a happy life. And our problem in Africa is not a lack of potentials. We're not suffering from lack of potentials. We're actually suffering from the greed and gross ineptitude of elected leaders who feel they have monopoly of corruption. And this has really caused so much decadence and retardation in the continent of Africa. I know it's a global challenge. It's a global challenge. So I want to say this, that for me as a person, I think just like a lot of speakers have profiled the solution for collaboration, as the concerned organizations, especially NGOs, come together with one voice and speak against global conflict and every human rights challenge at a global level, beginning from the local level, because I think this should begin from home. So just to summarize this whole thing, let me share my story. I was in Kaduna in the year 2000. I was there to visit my uncle, who was an inspector of police. And while I was there with the family, I was to stay for about a month, but I ended up staying for 2 months because I was enjoying my time there. Around that time, the governor of Kaduna State came up and announced the introduction of Sharia law. And what I'm talking about now is Googleable. You can Google it. I think Wikipedia has this report. I was there in the year 2000. So when the governor of Kaduna State, McAfee back then, I think that's his name, came to announce the introduction of the Sharia law into Kaduna State, the CAN chapter, that's Christian Association of Christian Association of Nigeria of Kaduna, came up and organized a protest against that particular introduction or the intention to introduce the law, the Sharia law, into Kaduna State. And when he did that, some Muslim youths opposed the protest with, violence. And after that day, that was on the 21st of February in year 2000. The next morning around 3 a.m., everybody was awake because we started hearing rumors of war, which evolved into gunshots. And gradually, they started advancing. We didn't know that it was a planned work. There was already a plan on ground to enforce the Sharia law. And gradually, they started invading. The place, the name of that place is called Rigasa in Kaduna, opposite of Tudunwada in Kaduna. They started invading, and by 10 a.m., they had invaded the whole of Rigasa, gathered the whole Christians together, and were shooting into our midst sporadically, killing people. I was seeing my friends dying. I was seeing their parents dying. People were smashed on the floor. Their head were broken on the ground. Babies dying. At one point, where I was standing, a man came out among the youth, shot directly to me. I didn't know how. I fell down only to stand up from the ground, and without, I wasn't hit by the bullet. I don't know what happened, but I'm sure that was divine intervention. At some point, I escaped death severally amongst the crowd. Everybody was running helter-skelter for their life. And they forced us to start reciting some Muslim prayers, forcing us to convert to Islam automatically. And so whoever was not saying those prayers was killed at a spot. So what I did as a person was to be praying in my own, I started praying in my own religion, just to make sure my mouth was moving. And so I did that for as long as they were, treating us like animals. At one point, one of them came with a can, a 5-liter petrol can, and poured it on us and was about to set us ablaze. But I don't know what happened. He didn't find his lighter on him. And he went to look for the lighter and probably did not come back because of the distraction in the atmosphere. The atmosphere was so tense. There's one particular scene I will never forget. While we were trying to escape, people were being stampeded to death. At one point, I was trying to climb over people to escape, when I saw the hand of a little boy being pushed out of that stampede by the mother that was under the ground. People were on top of her. I was gonna go, but I couldn't move. My heart went after the young child, the little child. And I went and tried to drag the child out of that stampede. And I did that eventually. I couldn't help the mother. And I walked away hoping that the mother would be safe. Let me cut the long story short. At some point, the military came and intercepted the whole riot. And I don't know, some kind of dialogue happened. And they were able to ask the Muslim youths to allow them take us to the army barracks, which they did. The barracks is 44 barracks in Kaduna. And I was there with this little boy. And as fate will have it, later in the evening, I heard that a woman was looking for a child. And I was so happy that the woman was able to make it. And I looked for the woman. in the military barracks, and I gave her her child. It's a very, touching experience for me. It was very horrible experience for me. And eventually, we're in the barracks like refugees for like about a week until a senior uncle of mine sent for us that escaped to come to his house. We went there. After like 2 weeks, the thing died down. I went back to my uncle's house where I was staying, and the whole house was vandalized. All the houses around burnt. I was escaping, jumping on dead bodies. Some people I knew, some youths, they're all dead. The horror of this experience made me give up on my country back in 2000. And I'm almost in tears as I'm talking now. I gave up on my dreams. I gave up on Nigeria in year 2000. And I didn't know the mental impact that had on my potentials, because from childhood, from my primary school days, I was always the best in everything. Up to my secondary school days, I was the best, the forefront in most of the subjects. I was a senior private boy of my school back in the days. But that experience in Kaduna, I felt I had a promising future. I felt like someone who was going somewhere with very, viable potentials. But at that point in Kaduna, I began to live life without any motivation. I didn't see any future ahead. I saw people dying, so I thought to myself, is this the value of human life in Africa? I just went, from that point, I started desiring to leave Nigeria. But of course, as fate will have it, I'm still here. Of course, I know soon I will travel, but not to go and stay. I love Nigeria now. There's a paradigm shift already. A paradigm shift happened when I started studying and reading. One of the books that really helped me was the book by Stephen R. Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. After that, I bought the 8 Habits too, and I read, and there was a paradigm shift after that experience. And like I said, the impact of conflict and violence as it concerns peace globally is a major challenge globally. Because when you look at this scenario that I've just painted, it's a true life story of mine. It leaves us with the reality that the impact so far from inception, the impact of war, the impact of genocide, homicides, you just name them, the impact has actually made our world a more retarded place. That's the honest truth. Our world is more retarded than developed. It's my opinion though, but that's just where I feel. Because you can't really quantify. I think there was this report that came out in 2012 concerning the economic impact of conflict globally. It's the report of IEP, the Institute of Economics and Peace. The report says that the world lost about 9.46, about $10 trillion to conflict. You can imagine the impact. So imagine, now we could quantify that. We could quantify the impact of conflict and violence on the resources of the world and on the economy. But can we really quantify the impact of violence and conflict on human potentials and capital development? I'm very, very sure that if we were to give a statistics of that, we will never be accurate. And like I said, this has left us with a staggering reality that our world is a more retarded place than developed. So what is the solution for this? And just like everyone has said, to me, grassroots education is very, very key. And I said that because it is very, very easy to condition a child than to change an adult. Right now, the approach that the world is taking, a lot of organizations, if we give that same energy, we invest that same energy in grassroots education, in grassroots rehabilitation of the mindset of conditioning them for the future, educating them of their rights, they will grow up with that value, with that sense of awareness of what their rights are. And they cannot be easily violated. But right now, the world is trying to change adults. And like I said, the problem of Africa is not a lack of potential. It's not a lack of resources. Our problems is the greed of our leaders. Because our leaders make sure they don't educate people, especially here in Nigeria. They don't educate the people they call the admajuris. It was the admajuris that were used to facilitate the riots in Kaduna back then. So I'm going to wrap up by saying the world needs to speak against the violation of human rights with one voice. And education, grassroots education, has to be a key instrument in achieving this goal, because it's becoming a difficult task by the day in our approach to try to change adults who are already a major problem to Africa. Our leaders are our challenges. Our challenge. Our leaders are our problems. So let's go back to the grassroots and facilitate this process. And I believe we'll have a better future for our upcoming generation and even, the present generation. Thank you so much. I appreciate every speaker who, is on the webinar. And I thank you, all the goodwill ambassadors. Thank you so much, Dr. Janice. I appreciate the privilege. Thank you for giving the privilege to share my story.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bill Ishaku. So sorry for what you had to go through back then. I can easily relate. I do pray that our leaders will come to terms with the fact that we are all humans and humanity comes first. Thank you so much. And grassroots education is really key to ensuring a more developed society, a society that respects human rights. Thank you once again, Mr. Bill Ishaku. At this point, I believe that we have, I have gone around the table, ma'am. So I don't know, I think most of our speakers would like to share a thing or two for their summary. So I would give us like a minute each for us to say our last words on today's webinar. So in no particular order, I would like to call on Madam Maria. Madam Maria, you're on the call.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you all for your presentations. It has been very interesting to listen to your stories and your speeches. I have learned a lot. I believe that we together can make the situation better by sharing our knowledge about human rights. We must make everyone aware of the human rights and what we have in common as human beings. Our human rights are for all of us, and we need to reach every village, like Janice da Silva said. Of course, this is not easy, but I'm sure many grassroots organizations have the capability to do this. And yes, I hope we can continue to collaborate for the implementation of the SDGs. So thank you very much for this wonderful webinar. I'm truly grateful to be here, and I'm truly grateful to be connected to you all. And yes, thank you once again.
Thank you so much, Madam Maria. Ambassador James Mercy, do you have any last words?
Well, thank you once again, the organizers and the moderator and everyone present. Well, to talk about peace, as we've all said, we all know the definition, but peace cannot reign when we still have gender violation, gender inequality, when we still have a violation of human rights. So if things are being done properly, rightly, then we have peace. As we have said, a peace quote from Ambassador Janice, who says, peace begins with me and you. So if we realize that, I think you find it difficult to hurt or harm your brother or your fellow or neighbor. So to keep peace means we are keeping the human rights. So they work together. If you give the right thing to the right person, there will be always peace. And I always say that peace in abstract might be deceitful, but when it's been addressed, there will be peace of mind. So if you say you are peace with me and I don't know about it, but if we address it, I know that you are at peace, then we talk about it, then we have peace. So to cut it short, let's stay together and maintain peace by doing the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador James. Dr. Mohammed Kauta, are you on the call? Hello, Dr. Mohammed. We'd like to hear your last words, please. Okay, I think he's not on the call. Madam Lynn, would like to hear your last words. Okay, I believe she's not on the call. Madam
Okay.
Patricia. Okay, sorry, Madam Lynn, you can go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much, Dyson. Thank you. It's been a wonderful evening. Like I said earlier, there's something about human rights that we can't stop talking about it. For us to cause the change that we desire, it has to start from all of us. We have to keep pushing, educating. I just got another one away for any reason. We have to put it into perspective. We have to see how we can collaborate with grassroots organizations to ensure that we put forward ideas, modalities, policies that would move Africa forward and the rest of the world. So today has been awesome. I want to thank all the speakers. I want to thank Ms. Janice Da Silva. I want to thank every one of us, Joseph Akintola, our dear Patricia Ngene. We want to thank you so much. It has been a wonderful evening, and we pray that we have opportunities like this to discuss openly, to bring about our ideas to cause change to the world. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Madam. Madam Patricia, I would like to hear your last words.
Thank you very much for all this. All the speakers have spoken so eloquently and compellingly. I was most affected most recently by Mr. Bill Ishaku's presentation of his personal experience. And I want to say that one of the reasons we have a situation of almost anarchy and chaos, which is the antithesis of peace, especially in the developing world in Africa, is poor leadership. When our leaders who are not prepared to lead correctly, they overturn the electoral process and they get there and they just misappropriate funds. It is because the electorate is not in a position to demand otherwise. And why are we not in a position to demand otherwise? Usually we have not been educated. And when you are not educated, you are poor. And when you are poor, you're a victim. And when you're a victim, anything goes. So I think we need to begin to raise our children, start teaching them. Early child education is even one of the SDGs. Women education is also one of the women empowerment. We need to get our children educated. Nigeria has about 10 million children out of school. And this is like the world record. You know, we're almost 200 million, the most populous Black nation on earth. And we have so many out of school children. And I don't know what our future is going to be if these children remain unschooled. So it has become an emergency that we have to continue to lobby, to cry, to call on our leadership to pay enough attention, increase the budgetary funding towards early child education so that these children can get educated, so that they will know their rights and they will begin to enforce and demand that they are given what is their due. And when you have people that are empowered educationally, they can earn a living and they will not be prey to those who begin to thwart their own desires for their own political gain. So my own last thoughts are this. I think we need to push for grassroots education, push for increase in budgetary allocations to education, and try personally that each person attains a greater level of personal peace so that as a whole, we can begin to work towards peace on the global stage. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Ambassador Janice, for this opportunity. Thank you, Blessing, for this great moderation. It's been a wonderful session. I look forward to more interesting talks of this nature in the future and hope that we can begin to move towards achieving the SDGs in no distant time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Patricia. Mr. Joseph Akinola, we would like to hear your last words.
Okay, thank you. My last word still remains the main theme for the program, which is peace begins with you and I. And if peace begins with you and I, you can also add this to it. That there is always peace in the land if you and I mean every individual, does the right thing. Thank you, everyone. Thanks so much, Ambassador Janice, for this privilege and opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Joseph. Mr. Bill Ishaku, would like to hear your last words, please. Hello, Mr. Bill. Okay, I believe he's not on the call right now. Madam Janice da Silva, we would like to hear your last words, ma'am.
Thank you, Blessing. Thank you, Blessing. Thank you, Patricia, Lynn, Maria, James, Joseph, Mohammed, and all of you who honored us being here today. And as you mentioned, this won't stop here. The idea of Dev 17 is really to be a platform where we can have these informal discussions, but I'm seeing that these discussions will lead to resolutions, to global resolutions, because we are, discussing so deeply these topics. And as last words, I would like to tell you that as someone that is been working with the United Nations for 20 years, now the UN, it's totally clear that we cannot do it without the grassroots. We cannot make it any, international agenda. Even if this international agenda is the most wonderful one, it won't be a reality if we don't educate the grassroots, if we don't turn to the grassroots and empower them in all the senses. And as I say to the colleagues, people on the grassroots, the communities, they are always open to cooperate, and they know their needs, they know their own solutions. Thank you very much for being here today, and hope to see you again tomorrow. Thank you, Blessing. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Madam Janice da Silva, for those wonderful last words. And I want to say a big thank you to our speakers. You have done justice to this topic today, and we hope decision makers will look into it and make the necessary decisions that will be favorable to all. Thank you to the participants. It has been a great session with you guys. For the organizers of this webinar, we want to say thank you. Thank you so much for putting this up. It has really been inspiring and educating. We believe that we will be able to achieve a developed society without leaving anyone behind. Thank you so much for attending today's webinar.
connection is good.
At this point, we have to skill for joining in. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow. Ciao.
See you.
Au revoir.
Ciao. Au revoir. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.